and welcome back to this week's Real Estate Producer Show. I'm Kara, and I'm here with Matt Kraft from Signature Sotheby in Birmingham, and Paige and Nicole from Hall Financial. Welcome, everyone.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, hello. So we're going to get right to it,
Awesome.
and I need to know, what do you love about being a realtor in all things real estate?
We get that question quite a bit. Truth be told, I love architecture quite a bit. I think houses just really speak to me. And I arrived at real estate just sort of figuring out what it was I didn't love doing. But sort of that love for houses and architecture really brought me back to it. Since being in the business, though, I really then started to learn and appreciate how big and significant buying and selling a house is. Mm-hmm. For most of us, it's our largest asset. And so there's a real sense of satisfaction and gratitude for an opportunity to help people get through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure that having the appreciation for the houses itself definitely helps and helps, your clients along the way as well because of that.
Absolutely.
Question, Matt.
Sure.
You and your team are big in the luxury market.
Sure.
How do you define the luxury market? How do you define luxury, and what makes it different than other markets?
So I think obviously from a more generic, broad point of view, we look at luxury and we typically base it on a price point, and there's a real reality to that. I think you can kind of quickly go, all right, let's talk about $1 million and up. So, so we look from a statistical standpoint at that piece of it. Personally, though, I came to Sotheby's a little over a year ago, and I linked up with Dan Gutfreund, hence our Dan Gutfreund Realty Group out of Sotheby's. And a thing that Dan and I really both share is we wanted to elevate expectations for people and sort of get away from everybody thinking that luxury just meant a price point itself. We really wanted to make luxury more about the experience and the service that you're going to get from us. And by starting that and kind of building a foundation from there, I think the rest just follows. So regardless of what the price point is, if we can meet and achieve our goals for our clientele based on those aspects, we're going to be in really good shape no matter what. The price points themselves of properties will just naturally come to. But again, luxury really is, at the end of the day, still going to have some form of description based on a price point.
Right, and I love the part where you said elevating the experience. That's huge at Hall Financial, and I know that that's definitely something that, as you just said, that's so important and something that your team values as well. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Do prices fluctuate in the luxury market as they do in a normal, regular market?
Yeah, certainly. I think that everything's relative to the sort of the field that you're playing on. So we might see a little bit of a difference if we look at transactions in one price range to the next. When we kind of focus on that $1 million price point and going higher, there's still going to be similarities maybe in an average range that a price negotiates to. And just like any home, if you price the property correct, whether it's $100,000 or whether it's $5 million, it's going to sell. Aside from something super niche or in just a really extravagant, uncommon location kind of piece where you simply would only have a few buyers for that type of property, maybe then that's kind of your anomaly to that. But particularly here we're in Oakland County, we're in Birmingham, we've got Bloomfield Hills right to the north of us. I think if you take those two cities, just as an example, there's plenty more, but if you take those two, the luxury market's been moving quite quickly in the last couple of years, very similar to quote unquote not luxury.
Right, and those are the areas that you're focusing mainly in Michigan, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we really, I think one of my favorite pieces about coming to Sotheby's is the reach that it afforded me, and to extend that reach and that ability. And similarly, the same goes in terms of working with Dan too. One of my favorite things right now is having the opportunity to represent some properties off the lakes, like the northern lakes of Michigan.
Oh wow, nice.
And the Great Lakes. So in a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you go out that far and
traveling realtor.
Yeah, he does it all.
And Sotheby's does a really nice job with that. I think our international reach as a whole is pretty impressive. What the company as a whole does as far as putting your properties out there, whether we wanted to do it or not, is really impressive.
Yeah.
We try to take that and just run right with it and continue to excel upon it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely given me the opportunity to work on some projects that you wouldn't normally otherwise work on.
Yeah, awesome.
So, Matt, we've had at least 18 straight months of rising prices. Do you see homes going down soon or in the coming months?
Yeah, great question. I feel like for about 5 years we've been talking about when the shift is really going to happen. And we kind of continue, I'd say, to be proactive and plan for it. But really, we've seen things remain quite steady and in some cases even peak. So I'm quite optimistic and would say we're going to have a really strong fall. And I think that's going to transition right into an awesome spring for next year. I look a lot at economical factors beyond real estate, and I'm no expert, but trying to stay up in tune with what's going on, it would really seem to me that I think it's going to take longer than another year before we see a major change.
Absolutely.
Back to the luxury market real quick.
Sure.
Do you find that luxury market, the houses that are higher priced homes, do they stay on the market longer? Do you have those tough conversations with them at the beginning before you list the house about pricing it properly?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, you're totally right, Nicole. Again, pricing is still key to everything. We've all heard the slogan, a home's only worth what a buyer's willing to pay for it. A lot of times in the higher price points, you're going to have that much more astute types of buyers. And a lot of times these buyers are looking for properties that they really don't need, quote unquote, especially when you're talking about vacation property. So not as if, I'm only going to buy it if it's a deal, but I'm going to buy it if it makes financial sense, if it's fiscally responsible. So I think that's still a big piece that we try to stay focused on with our clients when it comes to pricing.
And with interest rates being so low still and the jumbo loan market being great, are you finding that more of your clients are upgrading?
Definitely.
Big time? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the pandemic really, it fueled a lot of things. Our lives have all changed in several different ways, far outside of real estate. But, one thing that remains common for everybody is we want a home and we want a place that we can, grow our family and run our businesses and do things of that nature. And the pandemic on the business aspect, I think, totally shifted that game. We have, I think about a lot of people that we might represent were owners of offices that could hold 10 to 20 to 100 plus employees. And they're looking at no longer utilizing those spaces anymore. They themselves maybe are working from home. Their spouse is also now working from home. Oh, and by the way, your kids are home more often, or at least you're home with them. So that alone has fueled people to go and get more square footage, bigger property, more room to spread out and sort of live like your life throughout the day.
Yeah, there's definitely a stronger appreciation on your home in itself. So
100%.
Yeah, that's definitely true there.
And finally, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it, for a lot of families, right before the pandemic, I felt like we were almost starting to experience a shift of wanting to sort of downsize your house a little bit, maybe make that a little bit smaller and invest in another direction from a property standpoint. And I think a lot of people have pulled back from that a little bit now because, they get the luxury of working from home, which is a pretty great convenience
that's interesting.
for some.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, finally, we know home values are still growing, but do sellers need to start pricing more competitively than they have before? Like, is that something you're looking at in the luxury market?
Sure. Again, it's I'd love just to have a simple answer for that, but I think it's really reason, case, circumstance. And people's goals are different too. I always like to look at, time, money, and quality, and you're only going to get 2 of those 3 pieces in like a typical business transaction. So you can relate that when you sit down with a seller about what's going to be most important and really finding out what's your motivation for selling, what's your goal, and what do you need to accomplish like the next goal. Oftentimes we're working with people through 2 or more phases. So you kind of have to piece it all together and maybe make an adjustment or a correction on one task for the other one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure with assessing those goals, other goals come up as well. And that's definitely why anyone selling their home at any price point, like you said earlier, needs a realtor like yourself, because you're assessing those, like I said, assessing those goals, and more things come up, so they need someone like you to talk it over with.
I have one more question. This is very important, Matt.
Oh man.
Now that the Lions are a few games in,
Oh boy.
you've seen them. I know you're a sports fan. Over under is 6. Are they going to win more than 6, or are they not?
So my wife works for the Ford family. She works very hard for the Ford family, and so I've grown to appreciate everything Ford so much more over the last few years. That said, 100%, I'm taking the under.
Okay.
Sorry, honey.
So you know.
He's
Thanks,
like, oh
Matt.
no, I'm gonna get in trouble later.
So I wish I had as much faith in the Lions as I do the real estate market right now. But
I love it. We're gonna quote that.
Okay,
We're
yeah,
gonna
please do.
frame it. We're gonna hang it up.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, this has been so fabulous. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for coming.
Yeah.
We're so appreciative for all of your knowledge and everything. And as always, like and subscribe if you like this week's Real Estate Producer Show.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.